Some people might have a little bit of problem believing that there were really these trees that were large enough to create the root beds of rivers, seas, like the Black Sea or the Caspian Sea or the Red Sea, and that these roots were once this large. I want them to believe it, but I want them to believe it on the basis of scientific evidence. I don't want them to believe it on the basis of nonsense. So, I could point to a number of places where they can find the evidence of it, but what I would say then would tend to be reflected back at me as I'm trying to personalize it, as if it's only my hometown. It's only my hometown of Spillville, Iowa, where they can find roots like this underneath a building. But they can find these roots under a hotel that exists right next to my grandmother's home, my grandmother Ruth Wagner, who used to own the home. And if they go to it's a bed and breakfast today. And if they go to the basement of that building, the owner, Mr. Taylor, he'll take you down there. It's not like Andy Taylor's jail or anything. He'll take you down there and he'll show you that there's huge root core, these holes that go all the way out to the river. Now, why are they there? They're there because there was a tree, a huge tree, like an oak tree that's almost larger than you could imagine that a tree would be 350 years ago, that stood there, and it thirsted for water so much that it bored a big hole like this into the earth all the way to the river so it could reach out and get some water. It was that thirsty. And then the roots baked in the earth for a long time. And they baked and baked and baked in the earth. There's no root in there today, see? But the energy of that root still exists right there. See, because that used to be a store where they sold stuff. So they put the building right there so that people would have a strong association when they went to the store. Like we're getting stuff that we need at the store, so we like being here at the store. It was logically planned. But because the tree's not there today, people are like, I can't believe that. That's just a hole. But the hole is there because the roots were once there. And the feelings of passion that you will get in the hotel room. I mean, you don't think you can get it on well with somebody? You can check into that bed and breakfast and see what you feel. And it'll work for you. But the reason why they're there is because tree roots actually reach out to the nearest water that they can find. And there's a huge river that is about a football field and a half away. And so at one time, that root, that was probably about this large, pushed through the earth with such great force that it reached right out to that river. And then there's one, then you can move over to a side, and then there's another one that reaches out there, and so on. They're just tunnels in the earth. If you were like an earthworm or a serpent, and you were going through the earth, you'd find these all over the earth, and you'd have no doubt about it. But you know what? We don't really get a chance to look. Rarely does a guy say to his friends, "Hey, come on out here, and I'm going to shave down into the earth about 3 miles, and then you can look at what you'll see there." But they exist. They exist over at Rock Valley College because you can go into these tunnels down there. And the tunnels exist today because at one time there were huge roots that coiled around there from trees that used to exist on this land. But we're not here. Like, I'm not here 400 years ago. So we can't show anybody that oak trees live for thousands of years. And at one time, they were really much larger than they are today. because a lot of the large ones have been taken out of the earth. But they once existed. And the evidence of their existence is still here. And so they did exist. And so today, lots of places that we go, you know, for example, when we're dancing on Pearson's on the lawn in Pearson's Hall, you can't imagine how huge trees were that once actually stood on that land like Prometheus, you know, in large numbers. Look at the beautiful trees that are at Beloit College today. You know, if your mind can go back 400, 500, 600 years, 700 years before those lands were developed, then I think just looking at what you see today, you can imagine that before, nature was more wild in what it produced, and it produced a lot of things that over time, as humans increasingly settled in cities and they changed the landscape of cities, we have forgotten. We have literally forgotten as a species what the earth used to look like, what kinds of powers and influences it had on people. And the people who would have remembered those kinds of things, who would have been more likely to remember those kinds of things, were the less citified, the less cosmopolitan, the more primitive peoples, and those too are gone now, you know, except for some, you know, we still have some Indian wisdom that exists. If you go onto a Indian reservation and you talk to some of the spiritual people there, they can tell you about stories of these things, mythically, having existed in the past, and you don't have to doubt it. If you're in California, and you can actually drive a huge piece of land moving equipment through the trunk of a tree, then you don't have as hard of a time believing it. But if you've never been to California, and you've never seen the California redwoods, and you don't know that they exist thousands of years, then you're not going to have any idea. You're going to be like, man, this guy's full of shit. But it isn't true.